Hi, hello everyone. Let's get started. So in today's video, we continue talking about AWS basic capabilities, and today we will discuss one of the most important features of VPC related to security. We'll talk about security groups. So security group, that's kind of firewall which protects your network resources inside your VPC, right? Okay, so to access security groups, we go to EC2. So either it's in recently visited services or just under services, you call up the menu and you should see EC2 under compute. Let's go to EC2. Once again, security group, it's a region specific resource. So for now, for example, I'm in a Frankfurt region. So if I define a security group in Frankfurt, I will not be able to use it, for example, in London or in any other region, right? So it's region specific. Okay, and here we have a menu on the left, and here under network and security we have security groups. Let's click on it, and here we can see all security groups we have, right? So the name, so basically that's the name of security group used by us humans to identify the security group as such. So AWS uses security group ID to identify it. So the name, VPC ID, so it's VPC specific, right? Description, owner, inbound and outbound rules, right? So let's create a new security group and explore it in more details. Security group, okay. So group name. So basically the group name will allow you more easily identify your security group, right? Let's call it test security group. Okay, description used to demonstrate how security group works, right? So VPC, yeah, right. So it's a VPC specific resource. So in my case, I don't have any choice actually because I have only one VPC defined in region Frankfurt. So if you have multiple VPCs, here you'll have a drop-down menu where you can select your VPC, right? And here we have inbound and outbound rules. Yeah, let's keep it for now as it is. Let's create. Okay, and here, so that's our VPC. Yeah, if we go back to security groups, here we will see our test security group. Here it is. Yeah, used to demonstrate how security group works. Okay, let's click on it. We are back here, and basically, security group consists of inbound rules and outbound rules. Basically, we define some rules for inbound traffic, which comes into our network interface of our EC2, or outbound, which comes out of the network interface of our EC2. Yeah? And by default, you can see inbound rules. We don't have anything. And outbound rules, we have all traffic. Yeah, you can see IP version, type all traffic, all protocols, all port ranges and destinations for 0/0. It means any IP address. Yeah? So in security group, we define allow rules. Yeah, so we define which type of traffic is allowed, either inbound or outbound. Yeah, so here we have that all traffic is allowed in outbound rule. And in inbound rules, we don't have anything. Yeah? And that means that no inbound traffic is allowed at all because in security groups, we can define only allow rules. Yeah? And if no rules defined or traffic doesn't match any of the rules defined, it is denied. Yeah. So in inbound rules and in outbound rules, we have implicit deny rule, yeah, which is not shown, but it there. Yeah. So if we don't have any rules, like in inbound rules by default, any traffic is denied. If we have some rules defined, but traffic doesn't match any of these rules, it's denied as well. Yeah, implicit denied. So, and what you should remember now, that if we create a default security group, all inbound traffic is denied by default, and for outbound traffic, any traffic is allowed. Yeah. Let's see now how we can configure or add new rules. Yeah, for inbound, we should add something. Either we will not be able to do anything, so inbound traffic will be denied. Edit inbound rules, and here we have button add rule. Yeah. So here we have in type, we have basically most types of traffic defined and allowed on internet defined here. Yeah. So you can define whatever you want. So if I, for example, define SSH, so as you can see, some columns will be populated automatically. For example, port range is 22. Yeah. Okay. So if I want to allow users to connect to my web server, yeah, so I host, let's say, WordPress site, I define an inbound rule that traffic on AT is allowed. Yeah, that's in case of course, if I don't use HTTPS, so um, secured protocol. Yeah, let's use HTTPS. HTTPS 443 source. Yeah, so here there is a column source where we define a source IP address. Yeah, so we can define whether this type of traffic, HTTPS, is allowed only from some custom IP addresses, or it's allowed for a range of IP addresses, or it's allowed for any IP address. Yeah. So for 0/0, it's any IP address. We can also define custom IP address. Yeah. Um, why we would like to use custom? For example, if we define a rule for SSH and we would like to allow to connect only from my home IP address, any other SSH traffic from any place on in the world will be defined, so denied. So I will use as a source custom and will enter my IP address. Also, it's quite interesting that as a source we can define another security group. Yeah, meaning that traffic comes from another EC2 instance and it uses, for example, this security group, it will be allowed. It's quite convenient if I have multiple EC2 instances, so I don't need to define allowed IP addresses as a custom ones, but if they use all the same security group, I just define a security group as a source, right? Okay, for now, if we are hosting web server, of course, we will use anywhere from the world, allows to connect to web server. Okay, save rules. And as soon as we save or add the rule, it's in place. Yeah, so we don't need to do any restarts or anything like that. Right? Okay, so that's about inbound rules. Outbound rules. So as I said, by default, we are allowed to send outbound any traffic. Edit. Yeah, and here basically the same, but the only difference is that for outbound rules, we define destination IP address, not source, yeah, because source IP address is our IP address, right? So we define destination. And for inbound rules, we define source because we know that destination is our IP address, right? Okay, so let's keep as it is. Yeah? And basically that concludes this video. So now you should know what the security group is, why we need it, what are the default security settings for security group when we create it. So you know that in security groups we have only allow rules, and in the end of inbound and outbound rules, we have implicit deny rule. So if traffic doesn't match any of the defined rules, it will be denied. Okay. In the next video, we'll talk about another kind of firewall called network access list. Yeah, we'll see how it differs from security groups. Okay. That's all for today. Thanks to all for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.